Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about the strengths and weaknesses of Eastern Conference playoff teams. In this podcast, I discuss the strengths and weaknesses of playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. As of right now, the Eastern Conference playoff teams include the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, New York Rangers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning, Pittsburgh Penguins, Boston Bruins, and Washington Capitals. Strengths of Eastern Conference playoff teams. Florida Panthers. The strength of the Florida Panthers is their offense, offensive depth, and offensive versatility. They can roll all four lines, and their top three lines are as good as any in the NHL. Florida is led offensively by the dynamic duo of Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau, followed by really good secondary scorers in Sam Reinhart, Anthony Duclair, Sam Bennett, and Carter Verhaeghe. Anton Lundell and Mason Marchment have also provided great secondary scoring as well. The addition of Claude Giroux at the deadline gives Florida many options to work with and makes their power play extremely lethal. Because of Florida's extremely explosive offense, they are a legit contender to win the Stanley Cup. The strength of the Carolina Hurricanes is their defense, team structure, and offensive depth. While many may not think of Carolina as a high-scoring team, they are top 10 in the league in scoring because they have balanced scoring throughout their lineup. Carolina is led offensively by Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and Teuvo Teravainen, followed by secondary scoring from Vincent Trocheck, Nino Niederreiter, Martin Necas, Seth Jarvis, Jordan Staal, and Jesper Fast. Carolina has allowed the fewest goals against in the league, and are one of the toughest teams to play against due to their structure and system. While most teams defend well because they have great defenders and goaltending, Carolina does so by maintaining control of the puck the majority of the game, and completely controlling the play in the neutral zone. This makes Carolina a legit threat in the Eastern Conference. The strength of the New York Rangers include elite goaltending, offensive depth, and superstar talent. Igor Shesterkin is a Vezina Trophy candidate for a reason, and is the reason why the Rangers have a shot at winning the Cup. Not including Shesterkin, the Rangers have four superstars on the team: Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and Adam Fox. So any given game, any one of these players can take over games. The addition of Andrew Kopp, Frank Vetrano, and Tyler Mott has given the Rangers tons of options to work with offensively, and allows them to roll all four lines. The Rangers are a complete team, and are a threat to win it all. The strength of the Toronto Maple Leafs is their goal scoring and star power. The Maple Leafs are led offensively by three superstars in Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. These three superstars are capable of single-handedly changing the course of any game they play in, so it's always an advantage to have them in their lineup. Beyond the star players, they have a good supporting cast, which includes Morgan Rielly, William Nylander, Alex Kerfoot, Michael Bunting, and Ilya Mikheyev. The Maple Leafs' offensive firepower makes them a threat in the playoffs. The strength of the Tampa Bay Lightning is their star power, offensive depth, and elite goaltending. Tampa has five legit superstars on their team: Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, and Andrei Vasilevsky. Andrei Vasilevsky was the MVP of the postseason last year, and was one of the main reasons why they won the Stanley Cup. Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point have been the dynamic duo that has terrorized the league the past 2 seasons. Steven Stamkos seems to have found his goal-scoring touch again, and Victor Hedman has been a force from the back end. Tampa's supporting cast isn't as great as it was last postseason, but they do have good secondary scoring, which includes Anthony Cirelli, Alex Killorn, Nick Paul, Brandon Hagel, and Ross Colton. These players should play a big role on the team this postseason. As back-to-back champions, you can bet Tampa Bay will find a way to be a force to reckon with in the playoffs. The strength of the Pittsburgh Penguins is their star power and playoff experience. Pittsburgh has two legit superstars in Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, as well as some star players in Jake Guentzel and Chris Letang. Adding Rickard Rakell at the deadline adds depth to their already impressive offense. Led by Crosby and Malkin, the Penguins have the longest running postseason streak in North American sports, and have won 3 Stanley Cups as well. Jeff Carter is also a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and has been a clutch postseason performer in the past. Because of their playoff experience, Pittsburgh is going to be a legit threat in the postseason. The strength of the Boston Bruins is their superstar talent, structure, and defense. Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, and Taylor Hall are legit superstars that can change the outcome of any game. The defense is anchored by Charlie McAvoy and the newly acquired Hampus Lindholm, as well as Brandon Carlo and Matt Grzelcyk. these 4 defensemen should shoulder the bulk of the minutes come playoff time. While Boston doesn't appear to be the most threatening team on paper, they are always a tough out because of how well structured they are and how well they play in tight, checking playoff type games. The Bruins are going to be a tough matchup for any team they face. The strength of the Washington Capitals include their offensive depth, star power, and balanced scoring. Washington is led by superstars Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Nicholas Backstrom, and John Carlson, all of whom have game-breaking abilities. Players such as TJ Oshie, Tom Wilson, Anthony Mantha, and Lars Eller provide much-needed secondary scoring. The additions of Marcus Johansson and Johan Larsson give the Capitals incredible balance on offense and gives the Capitals the ability to roll all 4 lines with confidence. With so much playoff experience on this team, they will be a tough out in the playoffs. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on anchor.fm/hockeywiz777scouting. Weaknesses of Eastern Conference playoff teams. The weakness of the Florida Panthers is their defense and maybe goaltending. Although Sergei Bobrovsky has played well this season, he has not been nearly as good in the playoffs in his career. So if he falters, I don't know if the Panthers can rely on Spencer Knight to carry them. Outside of Aaron Ekblad, the defense doesn't really stand out, and there are moments when the defense will appear loose and have breakdowns. The Carolina Hurricanes are the one team that doesn't really have many weaknesses on the team. If I had to pick out a weakness of the team, it would have to be goaltending. But it's not really a glaring issue because of how well the Hurricanes play defensively in front of their goaltenders. While the Rangers are a very good and talented team, they lack playoff experience, and that might hold them back in the playoffs, especially when playing against teams with more playoff experience on their roster. Another thing is that you don't know how reliable young players like Lafreniere and Kakko will be. Also, their D-core is relatively inexperienced, so any breakdown defensively will be picked out by more experienced veteran teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs have the most weaknesses of any team in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. Toronto is vulnerable defensively, especially if they don't have Jake Muzzin. Despite scoring a lot, Toronto struggles to hold leads in tight scoring games because they don't have good defensive structure. The biggest weakness, however, is their goaltending, and it has been a concern for the past couple postseasons. The Tampa Bay Lightning are definitely not as good as they were last season because they lost several key players on their team. The losses of Gord, Coleman, Goudreau, and Tyler Johnson will prove to be big, and it will be up to players like Ross Colton, Nick Paul, and Brandon Hagel to step up in their place. Despite having a great regular season, the jury is still out on whether Tristan Jarry can come through in the postseason. Another weakness of the Penguins is their defensive depth, and they will probably have to rely heavily on their top 4, which is bad if they make a deep run. The main problem of the Boston Bruins is finding secondary scoring, which they do get, but not enough. Goaltending is somewhat a question mark, as Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark don't have that much playoff experience. The Boston Bruins might not be the threat they once were in the postseason. With these concerns, the Boston Bruins might not be the threat that they once were in the postseason. The most obvious weakness for the Washington Capitals is their goaltending. Neither goaltender has proven that they can really be relied upon in a crucial game. The Capitals' defense is okay, but they have a weakness beyond their top 4, which may be an issue when facing the teams that they will face in the Eastern Conference. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. The contenders in the Eastern Conference are the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, Tampa Bay Lightning, and New York Rangers. The pretenders in the Eastern Conference are the Toronto Maple Leafs, Pittsburgh Penguins, Boston Bruins, and Washington Capitals. In my next podcast, I will discuss the strengths and weaknesses of Western Conference playoff